Welcome to the cave. We're so happy to have you here. How are you?
Hello, Almin. I'm very well, thank you. And thank you so much for the invitation. I feel so honored.
Oh gosh, we're very privileged to have you here. As you know, the cave is primarily for child protection social workers, and so most of our guests are either in that line or maybe in the legal line. But we are honored because today we have someone from a totally different field, which is applied linguistics. So I mean that we say thank you to you, and I know that you're a very busy person, so really from the bottom of our heart, thank you so much for making time available. The theme that we're currently running at the cave relates to report writing, and I'm very excited about what you're going to teach us. But before we go there, could you maybe just introduce yourself, just to give the social workers out there who's going to watch this video, just some background info in terms of your professional qualification and experience, so that they also understand from what angle you're going to talk today.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Anneke Butler. I've been a lecturer now for the past 8 years on the Vanderbijlpark campus of the Northwest University. I'm working in the School of Languages.
Okay.
And the type of applied linguistic modules that I present is academic literacy, critical and analytical thinking, while the linguistics that I present is not applied linguistics. That's descriptive, hardcore linguistics.
Okay.
But the other side, the critical thinking, the academic literacy, the writing courses, they are applied linguistics. And so much just for interest's sake, applied linguistics, you apply it on functional, practical context, it's for practical, functional purposes. Yeah. So before Northwest University, my husband and I, we both work at the university. We're both involved at the University of Pretoria. Okay. And before that, I worked at the NGO, the Wildlife and Environment Society for South Africa. And then before that, I was a teacher for a long time, a language teacher. Yes. 2 different schools, the one home language, the other one second additional language. So I've got the spread of language teaching. It's a lifelong journey of language and language teaching, I think.
That's awesome. So I mean, you are like exactly what we need. You are perfect because you're an ex-teacher, you're now an academic lecturer, and the area in which you specialize has to do with language and also writing, and one of the child protection social workers, we primarily try and prevent abuse and neglect from happening. We try and intervene to see when there's risks and it might happen, or it might escalate to a situation that's really bad, or then we intervene and we actually have to remove children. And, very tense situations, difficult, lawyers involved, court cases, and then trauma and abuse, it can get really, really negative. And one of our core, I want to say, skills or tasks is to convey. Whether it's to convey a message to a parent, or whether it's to convey a message to a psychologist or to an attorney, or to a presiding officer. We have to be the bridge between the events where we investigate, where the social workers do home visits, etc., and the people who have the authority to make final decisions, because that's often not the child protection social worker. They are the process of decision making, but not normally in legal matters, it's the presiding officer. And so being that bridge, we have to communicate, and we have to do so verbally and in writing. And that does not come natural, to everyone. That is not an easy task always. And the multicultural, multilingual South Africa that we are anyway, English is not everyone's mother tongue. Baie van ons is Afrikaans, or we are Xhosa speaking, or many other languages, but the business language is English. So that makes it even a little bit harder. But we have to communicate well for the sake of reaching our goals in our cases, etc. So, and you are coming from a completely different angle. As I said, but I am super excited to hear what you have to say. And I think every social worker who's going to click play on this video is going to be like, oh, okay, what is she going to say?
Oh,
What
shame.
teach us? So I want to open the floor to you and ask you, what can you share with the child protection social workers in South Africa in terms of what they could consider or think about twice when they write their court reports? I gave you an example of a template that we use in South Africa, the Form 38.
Yes.
Specifically the court report, to give you some kind of idea of what our reports look like. I mean, there are many different other reports as well. But yeah, I'm going to keep quiet now and enlighten us. Thank you so much, Annika.
Anytime. You mentioned that now something about we are not all English mother tongue speakers. Of course, I'm also an Afrikaans girl. So yeah. I think I wanted to say, Dumela, Bob me, and all the touches out there. Yeah. Yes. There's something about English as a second language I want to say to you. But there's something interesting that I think I've never mentioned to you before. Yeah. Is I think I'm of the few linguists in the country that actually has an honors in child educational psychology.
Wow, so, that makes you even more perfect. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But that's just a tiny little drop. Yeah. So I hope that I have the right heart. Yeah. To really have empathy with this profession, because it's a profession that I have enormous respect for. Mm-hmm. And it is my privilege that I hope I can contribute something towards empowering and strengthening your hands, perhaps.
Yes.
The interesting thing that you said about English is not all of our not everyone is a mother tongue speaker. When I speak about writing, and it usually happens in English, right? I say that a way of writing, your writing style, your writing ability is also something like a second language that you learn. Okay. You learn the tricks. You become better over time. With practice, you become better. Mm-hmm. And I see it always as the type of writing style, the writing format, you must actually view as a new type of, it's not a conversational English. Mm-mm. It's a English for a specific purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
It has rules, it has requirements, and you have to learn and practice that as a second language. You know, like for us, between all of us in the cave, it's now a 12th official language in the country. Us, just for us. Yes. Then, obviously, I think your need is so specific that it is, in a sense, it made me nervous when I started to think about it. I'm not in the profession. What would I possibly be able to contribute? And then I started to think, and I used the Form 38. So I had an initial idea, and it is that Form 38, either you fill it in, or I'm sure some of the social workers have a template on their computers and they type it out. It's actually, in a sense, filling in a form correctly, if you simplify it.
Yes.
It is a lengthy document. It is a kind of a tedious document, if I can call it that, with all the respect in the world. It's necessary. Absolutely. I can see it's necessary.
Absolutely.
But if I have to put myself in the shoes of the social worker, I know, and I know as a citizen of the country, not because I know your profession well.
Yeah.
Overloaded, under-resourced,
underpaid.
I wanted to say that.
Underpaid.
It is. I think you have the complete package.
Yeah.
People with one of the most important jobs to do in our country.
Yes.
Sitting in this context, having to fill in forms like this.
Yeah.
It is something to have empathy with, like deep empathy with. Yes.
And not just one, you know, some of them have cases of up to 300. Not that everyone will be a court report, but there's 159 reports, there's process reports, there's reports, termination reports. It's a never-ending administrative, like you say,
burden, nightmare.
But it's necessary, it's people's lives, and therefore, you know, if you can give us something to just help them do better or easier, or because
so I thought this is yes, so this is the necessary evil.
Yes,
I understand. I can understand that you feel overwhelmed, that it could be a burden on you on top of all the others. But my first thing that I want to say is this report, in whatever form, be it now a filled-in one or the electronic one on your computer that you submit, when I thought about the form itself, the report itself, I immediately felt the weight of the importance of that report. Absolutely. And I think that's a very good starting point. So for me to find a linking between your world and my world, that we perhaps acknowledge the importance of what that report, what's the job of the report, why do we have to write the report? And I saw a picture from above that the social worker can do his or her work as good as possible. In the end, the report is you can have the most sunny, warm personality on earth, but in the end, the words in the report stays. Stay actually.
Absolutely.
And I think if we look at the report from that angle, we can see that we perhaps have to revisit a few key writing conventions, or think about the writing in the report if we have in mind that you are not always there to defend the report. Perhaps no one is going to ask you, what did you mean by the sentence? It's lost. The meaning is lost if you don't write it clear and precise and exact and factually correct and whatever. So all my sympathy, I sent bunches of flowers to everyone that has to do this all day, every day, throughout the week. But if we can start to see we have no choice here, this is the vehicle, this is the channel in which all your work gets, the message gets sent. And if I think from
the vehicle of change. Sorry, I liked how you use that metaphor. Vehicle. It literally is, because oftentimes they write reports. We write reports. Sometimes I'm still in practice, but not anymore. But you write a court report, and the quality and the credibility of that often determines the direction of the case. Not always, but it does play a role. So it really becomes the vehicle of change. I really like how you, that comparison to it. Sorry.
No. And then if I think about, you mentioned the word communication in the beginning. You have to communicate either to parents or to other bodies or to the court through a written conversation. I thought about, in a moment, I saw the basic communication model in my head. Now, that is perhaps something that everyone at school level, perhaps one day in one class, a teacher mentioned it. Very simplistic, but there's a sender, there's a message, and there's a receiver. And this is the thing, you are the sender. The report is the message, and the receiver is someone on the other side, be it then the court then, in this case. Now, the last thing about the importance of the report that I thought about was, if this is the important vehicle of change, I think every social worker needs to remember, you are asked to write it. You are the expert that the whole system asks to write it. from everyone. They ask your input.
Absolutely true. And that is something to stop and perhaps ponder on. You know, for every social worker watching this now, social workers who might feel depleted. I mean, it's been an exceptionally traumatic year, but I mean, their work is already so difficult. So, you know, if you're watching this now and you're a child protection social worker, just for a moment realize your importance. And the recognition for your value in writing and in the Children's Act, where it asks for you to do the investigation, it asks for you to write the report. So yeah, I think that was nice. Yeah, Annika, just a second of, you know, acknowledgement, because you guys are so important in South Africa and globally.
Thank you.
But yeah, sure.
From a citizen, thank you as well. I mean, and then if I have to approach a writing task, different writing tasks, you can usually break a writing task up into finding information, processing information, and producing information. You don't, the producing is obviously writing the report. Yes. That's not the place to start.
No.
Something has to happen first. So finding information, processing it, and then produce it. And I thought, and that applies to a lot of different writing tasks. I can make that applicable to different tasks.
Yeah.
But if we look at the task at hand, the finding of the information, there comes in your visits, the fact, get the facts. So in the whole process of finding information, I think that's the fact-finding mission. And if we in any writing setup think about finding the information, then you want that information to be complete and to be accurate and to be factual.
Yes.
And if I think about a law report, of a court report, it should exactly be the same.
Yes.
So the facts that you base the whole report on, complete, accurate, and factual. And I think if we just think back about the weight and the importance of a report, and we don't want to let the report slip to the expense of the child, you want it to be successful and support the child. Completeness, you have one chance to write down everything. You can't leave something out and come back and say, oh, I want to add something, I forgot about something. So good note-taking, complete information, accurate. And I think we just have to think about an example or two, and factual. If we start with factual, because that's usually the easy one. From a writing perspective, factual information would be information that can be, if someone else go to the same place, they will find the same information. It's something that can be, that you can give evidence, you can prove it. Sometimes you can back it up. Those are the factual information, and perhaps we must think what is the not factual when it's your own interpretation and your speculative information. So if you want to find and gather your information, if you can keep those 3 points in mind, to gather the information as complete as possible, to make your notes and have your information as accurate as possible, and then as factual as possible.
Yes. And with backed up evidence, so in the form of affidavits, maybe a J88 report or whatever. So if you say someone said this, then have the affidavit where that person said that they said that.
It's a good point that you make me think now. When I was thinking about that, the completeness, the accuracy, and all the evidence based on the factual information. Am I right to think that if you use words like the child. Wouldn't it be better to call the child by its name?
Yes. And so one of the things that I've learned myself, and what I teach students as well, is that in the beginning of the report, you would have a summary of identifying details, etc., etc. And there you would definitely clarify who's who, so the names, surnames, etc. And then what I do and teach is that we say the child concerned. So if there's only one child to the case, and you then...
There's no confusion.
Yeah, there's no confusion. But if there's more than one child, I absolutely agree with you. Say the child's name.
Yeah, yeah. For example, what you mean is the maternal grandmother, Mrs. X.
Of the child concerned, because otherwise
of the
maternal grandmother. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Right. And if those...
If I can interrupt you, Annika, I'm sorry, what, I've spoken to a few attorneys, we have them on the cave as well, and sometimes when a social worker's case might be strong and her report or his report is well written and everything's actually okay, but then defense attorneys might look for smaller or less heavier things to just rattle the social worker. So I've seen it as well with mock trials. So say, for instance, you get the gender wrong of the child, or the name is spelled incorrectly or wrong, or you say, the maternal grandmother of someone else, not the child, then they start questioning your credibility. But I mean, how many times have you now incorrectly made reference to this child's name, or do you actually know whose grandmother this is? And so can we trust what else you have written in this report?
Exactly. So you open a door for someone to bash you, and you don't want that, because what's in the case that you present is the important thing. So if you make a little mistake like that, you open a door that someone might think that other things can also not be trusted.
Exactly. Yeah. And that also that has the potential to make the social worker nervous, and then the way he presents the evidence could be affected, and it's a snowball effect. So yeah.
Yes. Okay. Then if you gather the information, if that's the first thing that links for a typical writing process, the next step would be processing the information. And I think that's where the expertise of the social worker might come in. Because from your professional point of view, it's the assessment that you make.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
That is the processing part.
Yes.
But it should be clear now that your assessment, your processing is based on the factual basis.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And that will help you not to come across bias.
Yes.
To be objective, because you focus then as a next step, the processing and the assessment on the factual, clear, accurate, complete evidence before you.
And during that phase, even throughout the three phases, you made reference to, there's so many supportive documents that child protection social workers can use, like Regulation 35 and Section 7 of the Children's Act tells us what are the risks, when do we see a child as in need of care and protection, and then basic literature, what is neglect, what does it mean to care for a child, not according to your definition, according to the Act's definition. So all those things on the side, so you collect the facts, keeping this in mind, but then this part that you're talking about processing, you process while you consider the guidelines that we have, so yeah, just a thought, yes.
And perhaps there, when you use terminology, that's the place where you yourself needs to be sure that you and the court will understand the same thing.
Yes.
And that's perhaps where you reference something.
Literature, yes, absolutely, or just the Act, yes.
Yeah. So from the finding to the processing, and that is still not the writing part. So You know,
Yeah.
I think that is perhaps sometimes the biggest mistake that people make. They jump into writing, and actually you have to revisit the whole process in steps, in growing, in accumulating steps. It just grows.
Yeah.
So if you then process and there the expertise, the supporting documents, the making sure of your understanding, the act's understanding, the definition, the academic definition of something, that you have all of that right. So that, in a sense, becomes your professional thought process.
Absolutely.
I made a note when I thought about this, and that's perhaps something interesting. When you gather the information and you process it, you make an assessment. The objectivity that is required, the level of objectivity, non-judgmental, non-biased level of looking down at the situation. I think what I want to bounce off from you is perhaps it's important to note or to mention the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
Sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yes, because you want a complete picture.
Yes, but that is how it should be done. One should never go in just nitpicking and looking at what's going wrong, and especially not when you use the strength-based perspective like many of us do in social work. We definitely should be focusing on what is working, what resources are there, and reports. So it's about giving a balanced view based on the facts that informs your recommendation. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay. Because when I was thinking about this, I thought perhaps it might happen that we tend to look only at the problem.
Yes.
And I think the balanced view, that phrase that you used, is actually everyone depends on you, the family, and the courts. So the courts depend on you to give them the only snapshot they have on the life of the child, the family situation. They just have you to give that to them. So you have to give that whole processing, the whole thought process should be balanced, objective, not biased. And then when we get to the writing part of the report, I think then obviously filling all the parts, but then it comes to the recommendations.
Yes.
What the recommendations. And there perhaps, so the factual, find the facts, process, make an assessment, and then recommendations.
Yes.
That would be the writing, from a writing perspective, that would be the logical steps in the writing process.
Yes.
And it's really interesting. The moment that I think about recommendations, I again see the previous steps. The recommendations are based on the assessment, are based on the facts.
Yes.
It's that the golden line, the golden thread is evident. Absolutely. You have to, and then you have to stick to the case when you make recommendations. And I think there could most likely be general recommendations that you see in literature, and I think you have to make it applicable to the specific case.
Yes, absolutely, because not every child who's in need of care and protection, for instance, has a physical disability. And so a child who is in need of care and protection might have some similar recommendations as other children, but because this child might be physically disabled, there must be a very specific recommendation in terms of that, and that should be considered, for instance, in terms of who you recommend this child now it will be taken care by, for instance, definitely.